The journey we began years ago mercifully comes to an end with a creepy as hell CGI baby as we review the final film in the Twilight Saga. It's almost impressive how this series has lowered the bar with every single entry, so let's just get this over with. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight, and there's nothing more horrific than what we were about to do here tonight. I am Peter. I'm joined as always by Tim.
You imprinted on my daughter?
At least that was a good. That was. I understood that reaction though. That was the correct reaction.
Yeah.
To, you know, choosing your baby as your future wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct reaction, right? Correct reaction.
Yeah.
So, what are we doing? You might be asking. Why are we a serious, thinking man's horror movie podcast?
Well respected.
Well respected. Why are we doing this? Well, some time ago, good 2 years, maybe even 3 years ago now, we started doing Twilight movies just based on people donating money basically when I stream on Twitch, and we owed them the final Twilight movie for a little bit, but we didn't get a chance to do it before Tim went on paternity leave, so it was sitting there lingering like a awful smell, just like it needed to be done, and it was time. So as a treat to us for this Octoberthon, we're finally finished.
Okay, yeah.
There's no more Twilight after this.
For now.
Oh, don't say that. Do not say that. But yeah,
well,
so
first you'll get a prequel, then a reboot, and then a legacy sequel eventually.
the sad part is, I know you're right, there's eventually going to be something. There'll be some sort of Twilight spin-off or reboot or whatever it may be.
I forget, whoever owns the copyright is probably like every other day just thinking like, we got this IP, like there's got to be something we can do with it, right? Like, could we make a streaming TV show or like something like...
Well, I mean, technically, I've seen like at least a couple of bad pilots for like vampire TV shows in the last few years, so other people are trying to cash in on it, for sure.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Admittedly, that's not really fair. I shouldn't say that. Like, Twilight's not been relevant for almost a decade. I mean, this movie came out in 2012, so I don't know if a shitty Vampire Academy show from like 2 years ago was trying to cash in on Twilight, but it's definitely going to appeal to the same audience.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like still that beloved or anything, but I do feel like, or at least kind of hope like that, most of the people that liked it because they were young or whatever now are kind of grown up and saying like, oh, you know what, there was some kind of weird plot lines in this that don't really fly today, that aren't that great.
Oh, we'll talk about the creepy plot line, don't you worry. Yeah, it's probably in a weird place where you imagine that a lot of the fan base of that time period are a good decade older now, and maybe some of them still have nostalgia for it. But I have to imagine a lot of the people who were fans when they were maybe in their pre-teens or even teens, maybe have really grown away from it and out of it. But I don't know. Maybe
it's not a fandom that like you hear a lot about or whatever. Like I still hear people that like Harry Potter or whatever.
Yes.
But,
Harry Potter's kept some even through like bad spin-off movies. Like people still all bought the video game. Like it's a huge thing at this point in pop culture. Twilight was arguably more of a fad.
Yeah, but man, such a big one though. Like, it was crazy how much it was, and I mean, I don't want to spoil anything too far ahead, thoughts wise, but my big thing watching this movie was just kind of like, how was this ever that popular? Like,
I agree with that sentiment. Because keep in mind, this is the third book was split in, no, the fourth book, sorry, was split in two. This is the fifth movie. So we did Breaking Dawn Part 1. I think we did, was that last Octoberthon? It was sometime
right,
around there, yeah. It's been about a year or so, maybe a bit more. And like, we kind of felt like they just sort of picked a point to like split it in half, and the ending of the last movie. I mean, I guess I'll just say there's going to be spoilers. We're not going to do a spoiler-free section for this because no one watching our show cares if we spoil a Twilight movie. Like, I'm just going to make that assumption. And if you do care, then I've warned you. We're about to spoil it without caring.
You know what? I bet if we try really hard, we can make this our shortest episode ever.
I don't know, Tim. I don't know if I've got too much integrity as a reviewer.
I just want to get it done.
That's what she said.
Who, Bella?
I don't know, your wife probably. I don't know.
How dare
you? Yeah. So I mean, where to even begin with this? See the previous movies, Tim? Did they have like these fancy animated like opening titles like this one did? This felt new to me.
Yeah, I don't remember.
With all the snow effects and the words turning from red to white and so on, there was a lot of fancy little things going on here. Okay, so I just want to say something, right? So just this week, at the time of recording, right? We were recording this just before October, so this is still September for us.
It's one of the reasons why we want to get it right in, because you don't want to sully the good month of October with something like this. Yes,
Tim sent me a message, said, let's get this stupid Twilight movie out of the way so we can watch real horror movies in October. Yeah. I believe was the exact phrasing. I don't want to
show my Octoberthon list and just be like, all right, so I watched Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, House of the Devil, and Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. And, yeah.
Yes. Twilight 5, Breaking Dawn 2. That's what we're on. Yeah, so this week I went to see Expendables 4, and it was...
Where's this going?
It was garbage, as Tim might say.
Okay.
From time to time. But there was something in it that this reminded me of, actually, was the horrible green screen and CG.
Okay. So... This is like my big thing. I mean, I want to come back to the Expendables, of course, but
if you wish.
My biggest, like, I don't know, criticism or critique of this movie or bewilderment is just I don't understand how this is supposed to be like, at the time that this movie was coming out. This is like one of the biggest, hottest, most popular, like money making franchises or IPs like in the world or whatever. Like, it is so popular. Why the hell does it look this bad? Like,
it looks atrocious.
Like, it is so awful. And I mean, I don't remember the other ones super clearly, but like I don't think the other ones look great either, but I don't remember them being this bad or this noticeable.
Like, they were I don't think they ever looked good, that really. But certainly it feels like they've gotten worse, and this is that, like, it's one thing that the CG wolves and like the vampires like moving at super speed, which by the way was even worse this time. It was like a crappy effect from the Flash TV show, but even somehow more stupid looking. And because Bella's a vampire now and she's got these powers, there's a whole montage of her running through the forest and it looks silly. Now, it's one thing when the wolves and the vampire superpowers and all that shit looks not good, because at least it is all obviously going to have to be fake. So while I'd complain that the effects could be better, because they can be better, they can be much better, at least that's one thing. But there's just random shots in this movie when for no reason they're green screened, and I'm like, why is the shot of them standing in front of the main house a green screen shot that's very obviously green screened when you could have just shot the scene there?
Like, did the house they use like blow down or something? Like, is there some reason that they couldn't just literally just stand in front of it for like 5 minutes and say those dumb lines?
Blow down? You mean blow up?
A house can blow down, like if a twister came and blew it down.
Well, I would say blow away rather than blow down. I've just never heard someone say blow down before.
Well, we'll make t-shirts now. Blow down.
That sounds dirty. If you wear a t-shirt saying blow down, it sounds like you're giving instructions to someone.
No. People know what we mean. Share your most memorable blowdown stories in the comments.
Oh no, please don't. No, I don't want a bunch of dodgy oral sex stories in the comments.
Oh, that's people know that's not what it means.
Well, I don't. This is all news to me. Yeah.
Right?
Thank you for giving us an example, which does not fit either description we've been commenting on. It's a completely new version of what blowdown means. Anyway.
It's one of the most versatile phrases in the English language.
Oh, is it?
Twister 2, blow down.
Hey, Twister 2 is coming out next year.
Oh, is it really?
It's a real thing, yeah. It's called Twisters.
Oh, they're going the aliens.
They're going the aliens, right?
Oh,
Although
okay.
I remember there have been multiple Twisters in the first movie as well, to be fair. It doesn't feel like yeah. Yeah. Maybe yeah, whatever. Anyway, so
I'm sure you'll cover it on the collector's cut.
As a matter of fact, it's scheduled for the show, yes.
I mean, is it a horror movie? I don't know. Twisters are pretty scary, but
I mean,
I'll let David take that one.
It's thrilling in a sort of action sense, but I wouldn't call it a horror movie, no.
Okay.
No. Which, by the way, probably has better visual effects, despite the fact that it's like 1996, than this movie.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's quite astonishing just how bad this movie looks at times. And then like there's an entire third act which takes place in this big field in the snow, and that's all green screened. Like, you know, the backgrounds just constantly look fake and separate from the actors. It looks like some sort of direct to TV movie that just happens
really does.
to have some oddly like recognizable people in it. I mean, Rami Malek from Mr. Robot's in this one. Bunk from The Wire shows up for a small scene. You know, the whole thing, and then that's on top of all the other people that show up, you know, that we already know about.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's wild. I hope these actors got a decent payday, and
Sure.
maybe that's why the effects are so bad, is because the actors cost so much money. There was no money for effects.
Well, I mean, the one thing I was like kind of thinking about was like if they, well, two things I was thinking about. One is I wondered if like it's so insanely popular that if they're just like, you know, we can just make this super cheap and crappy and people are going to see it anyway. Like, why go the extra mile when obviously like everyone's already on board to see it, you know? Or at least the fans are.
It does feel like a conscious decision where like the audience that Twilight has probably cares less because it's not like movie nerds really who are going to see Twilight. And then on top of that, you've already got them hooked in, and because it's the end of the story, they're all going to go see it to see the ending. That, you know, basically it's kind of a bait and switch. We already convinced you to see this one with the previous 4 movies, so we can just be as cheap as we want with this one, and like, tough, we already got your money. Like, who cares at this point? So then,
the other idea I possibly had, and this like kind of feeds into like some of the plot stuff, is that I wonder if the author, who's it, Stephanie Meyer, is that
she is the culprit? Yes.
I wonder if she had some type of deal where she had like final say, or she got to like, you know, make sure certain stuff was included, because you know, there's like a lot of stuff like plot wise that I'm like, all right, why didn't they just like kind of cut this out, or just, you know, smidge it up a little bit, kind of make it something different so it's just not as weird or dumb. And then I was kind of wondering if they're like, I don't know, if she had some say and it was like, no, this had to be included or whatever, or if they're just, you know, so devoted to the books that they're like, yeah, we don't need to change anything. Because I mean, like Lord of the Rings, you know, changes stuff. Like even like good books, like, you know, you should, you know, be able to fiddle with it if you're, you know, transferring it to another medium to, you know, make it as, you know, good as it can be. But
I mean, Jacob definitely agrees you should be able to fiddle with it. Yes. Now, what's funny is I don't know the answer to that question, but what's interesting about you asking me that is that I know that the franchise that came from this, which was 50 Shades of Grey, which started out as Twilight fan fiction, I know that the movies for that, the author wasn't happy that the director that made some choices in the first movie and like took more control for the sequels. So it's not unheard of, but I don't know if Stephanie Meyer had that pull necessarily when they were making this.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe she didn't. Maybe they were just like, they read the book and was like, you know what? It's perfect. We don't need to make any changes. Like,
has anyone ever read Twilight Breaking Dawn and went, it's perfect? Just slaps it down on the table. That's it. Now it's perfect. So this is a movie very much of 3 acts to me, because Act 1 of this movie I do think is hilarious. I think the first like half hour of this is genuinely really funny. Not intentionally. Like, it's not intentionally funny. Let me make that clear. It's so bad that it's hilarious. And then there's a turning point, and then it gets so boring boring, and it's just a montage of like collecting other vampires to help fight a war, and it's just repetitive, and it's like what's happening, and then the third act is just this big fight in the snow, which is just full of bad CG, and we'll talk about all the specifics as we go through it, but that, to me, that's the breakdown of this movie. I thought I was in for a good bad movie time for the first half hour, because Bella, like, smelling stuff for the first time, having weird superpowers, the visual effect of her, like, climbing up, like, the cliff, like, all of that stuff was hilarious.
I want to see her eat someone.
And even the idea that Jacob, because he's not happy that they're going to move, because, oh well, since Bella's a vampire and we're going to like tell everyone she's dead, we're going to like fake her death. And well, it's not really fake because she's kind of dead, I suppose, in a way, but you know what I mean. So they're going to tell her dad that she's dead, and Jacob's like, no, that's bullshit. And to be fair, I agree with Jacob. This is bullshit. Why does Charlie deserve to think that his daughter's dead? And instead, she's got the life she wanted. I mean, it may not be exactly what he wants for her, but he should know she's happy and see his granddaughter and shit. And Jacob goes to Charlie, Bella's dad, and just starts taking his clothes off. And Charlie's like, Jacob, what are you doing? Put your clothes back on. And he's like, I know this seems weird, Mr. Swan. And he's like, Charlie, what are you doing? And then then there's an awful visual effect of him turning into a big wolf in front of him, and Charlie damn near shits himself. And what really was weird to me, so then he brings Charlie to the house, right, is that it's very unclear how much he's actually told him about what Bella actually is, because Charlie asks, are you going to turn into an animal as well? And she's like, no, it's not like that. And Bella keeps saying things like, look, I can't tell you anything, it's too dangerous for you. To which I say, why? Why is it too dangerous for him to know? But she's like, can you just accept that you can't know, but trust me to know that it's okay and that I'm happy? And I'm like, I don't know, Bella. You have lied to this man so much. You're physically changed, and you're going to be immortal now, and he doesn't get to know that. Just that actually does feel like bullshit. It feels selfish to me. I mean, she's always been selfish when it comes to her dad, but this felt especially selfish.
Well, I mean, especially too with the fact that like the father seems like the one good person like in this world, like everything that he's had to put up with, and he is still like so loving and caring, and but not like, you know, pushy and overbearing. Like he still knows how to give space and like respect and stuff, and like he gets none of that in return.
He's trying his best. Honestly, the best thing this movie does is give him a happy ending because he's found a new girlfriend, and I damn near cheers like, oh, good for you, Charlie, you found a MILF. Like, good for you, Charlie, you deserve it. You deserve happiness, Charlie, away from that horrible daughter of yours.
Of course, you know, she's probably going to turn out to be a mummy or something like.
Well, yeah, because this universe is full of all these mythological beings. Okay, Tim, we have to talk about the baby's face.
Oh dear Lord.
For some reason, they made a choice to digitally, and this is a movie with bad visual effects. They made a choice to, instead of just having a baby, they wanted the baby to look like the actress who was going to play Renesmee, that's the daughter's name, when she's a little bit older. Because
we can talk about that for like half an hour too.
Yeah, she grows up really fast apparently, because she's like a 10-year-old by the time the movie ends. And like a month has passed, maybe, if that, I don't know. So they made the choice to digitally put like the other actress's face onto the baby's face, or like a slightly altered version of it. And every time you look at this baby, it is creepy as shit. And I laughed. One of the things that made me laugh the most in this whole movie, actually, is that when Bella meets her baby, because she's been like in a coma for like 2 days since she became a vampire, and when she sees her baby for the first time, and Edward's looking at both of them, Edward says, "She's got your eyes." And it cuts to a shot of the baby, and these are the scariest dead black eyes that I have ever seen. It was so horrifying, and it made me laugh so much that they cut to like this horrible face right after he said, "She's got your eyes." I'm like, damn, Bella, slap him for that. She's ugly.
Now, what's so funny about this, and I don't know if you know this or not, but this was actually like the second thing that they've had to do, because my wife was showing me this. I guess originally they had used like a puppet for
really?
the baby. Yeah, I don't know if you want to do like a quick Google, like, I don't know, Twilight original baby puppet or whatever. Like, this thing might actually be even more disturbing than what we ended up getting, which is like, you know, kind of hard to do.
Holy shit! I've seen a photo. This is what Megan should have looked like. This. That struck fear in the hearts of criminals. This is wild. So, this makes a lot of sense actually. So the reason why they did this horrible CG effect is to cover up the fact that what they used in the scene was horrible.
Yeah, but it's like, like they didn't even try to do something that's like the thing they came up with is still bad. It's like
Do you know what's so funny about it though? I'm sure this is from a later scene. It's not the first scene of the baby, but it looks like this baby has the same hair as the older version.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it's a relatively newborn baby. It shouldn't have long hair, but you know, whatever. Maybe it's just from a later scene, and you know, that's just the photo we have of it is from that moment. But
unless they want to go into some bullshit about how like, oh well, you know, the baby half vampire grows so fast, blah blah blah. I don't know.
Anyway, but the reason why, like, one of the big things that was making me laugh a lot was when everyone's sitting around awkwardly around Bella, and they're all, shit, we need to tell her about this whole Jacob thing, and she's like, tell me what's going on, and everyone's like, you know, it's a thing, and you know, he's a wolf and all that, and Jacob's like, Bella, you know, I don't have a choice when this happens. And she's like, what? And then, like, you know, she starts yelling at him and storms out the house and like throws him against the ground and is like, you imprinted on my baby. And this is when Jacob decides to like sort of reveal that he's given her a nickname already. He calls her Nessie, to which Bella responds with the apparently infamous line, you nickname my baby after the Loch Ness monster.
So did I miss something, or why does he call her Nessie?
Because so her name is I've forgotten already.
Renesmee.
Renesmee. So Nez is in the middle, so Nessie is in the middle of that kinda. It's a stretch. It's a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when they spell it out or whatever, but whenever they say Renesmee, like I never hear Ness in there.
Yeah, no, nor do I.
But it, you know, it's totally fine to combine names. Like there's some names that like really flow really well together, but Renesmee is so bad and like clunky, and they say it so often. It's so dumb. I hate it.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Yeah, that scene had me cackling with laughter.
If they combined our names, it'd be Teeter. That's not too bad.
Or Pim.
Yeah, it's not horrible.
Yeah. Well, teeter's obviously it's spelled different, but teeter is a word. Like if you're teetering on the edge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was cackling at this. This was so funny to me. Like it felt like it's not intentionally funny, but it almost felt like it was edited to be as funny as possible, and that's why I was laughing so hard. So this is all funny stuff. But unfortunately, once we start getting into the backstory stuff and we start getting like, okay, why Maggie Grace from Lost and Taken has like run away when she sees the kid to tell the vampire Illuminati, you know, Michael Sheen and all that, because she thinks they've got an immortal child, which is basically a kid that's been turned into a vampire, but that's against the rules. That's a big no-no, because kid vampires haven't matured and they'll be a kid forever, and they can't basically keep the secret that they're vampires in the world, because they'll just start killing because they're kids. They don't know any better. So we get this insane flashback where this kid's eventually thrown into the fire, but not before the vampire who sired him is like has her arms ripped out and her head's popped off. But every time you watch one of these, Tim, I forget that these vampires don't bleed and have flesh that rips apart. They pop apart like they're action figures. Like you're pulling the arms out of an action figure. That's what it looks and sounds like. And I so that was funny. But after this flashback, the movie gets so boring.
Yeah.
This is the turning point. This is where it just becomes about them like, well, what can we do? Well, the bad guys are going to come for us. Well, is there anything we can do? Oh, maybe we can go around and convince all of our vampire family and friends around the world that she's not an immortal baby and she's actually a weird miracle baby because she was half human, half vampire. or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, this stuff sucked. It was boring, and I don't know if a lot of these characters we've met before, but like I don't know if you have this problem, but I cannot keep any characters outside of like, you know, the main core cast.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, like even I think we met this guy in a previous one. I was like, oh, and like we're all just supposed to know the powers they have. Like a lot of the time I feel like I'm just like, oh, what can that person do?
Well, they
like,
kind of... No, I feel like most of these characters they go and meet are new, because I mean, I agree with you. Most of Edward's family, like I can remember what the parents look like, but all the other ones, like they could be brand new every time, and I wouldn't have noticed. But all the ones they go around and collect, I think they're all new, because we definitely didn't have someone with electricity powers before. That is definitely new.
It's true. Yeah.
Which, by the way, Bella's got a power as well that's unique to her. She has, you know how when you're playing an RPG, Tim, and you've got a party, and you've got that one character who can do a protective like spell, where they give you like a shield to resist the damage? That's what Bella has. So there's lots of scenes in this movie of Bella like having a force field come out from her to a person, and then that protects the person from the pain they're getting from someone else, which ends up being really useful during the big battle scenes later on. So that's the thing. But this takes so long though, because they go around and establish all of Michael Sheen's like henchmen, like Dakota Fanning and all them. We get like a montage of like them showing off their powers, so we know that okay, she does the weird like pain with her mind thing. Her brother, I think that's who he is anyway, has the shadow powers that'll turn you blind if you're consumed by the shadows and stuff. Like it sets up all these things, and then it has to set up Rami Malek's like a water fire airbender. He can manipulate the elements or shit. We have this woman with electricity powers who zaps people with her finger, and all this is like, if you were going to build some sort of weird vampire Avengers in your like last story, why weren't these all like properly introduced like over the course of the movies or something? This feels so weird and just out of nowhere to me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, structure wise, it's just bad storytelling. Like you don't want to introduce like this many characters, especially characters that ultimately, you know, don't do anything. Like, you know, you don't want to introduce them to like this late in your franchise.
They're bodies for the fight. That's really all they are.
A fight that, you know, doesn't even happen.
Oh, we'll get to that. There's nothing like finding out your entire third act fight scene is just a vision, and then they decide, you know what, this is a bad idea. Let's just all agree to peacefully go away.
Yeah. What an exciting resolution to this 4 film series.
5 film series, Tim.
Oh, 5, excuse me. Sorry. Is it really 5? Wow.
Yeah, that's the thing. You in your head, like I did this as I was watching it. You think of it as a trilogy where the last one was split in 2, but it's not. It was a quadrilogy where the last one was split in 2. So yeah, this is the 5th movie. They really milked this as much as they could.
Now, going back to something you said, one thing that, you know, such a missed opportunity is the whole vampires don't bleed and stuff, because let's be honest, this movie has a lot of decapitations. Like,
oh, tons. Yeah,
I don't know if it's like the most in film history, but it's probably up there with like in terms of how many people get their heads ripped off, which should be a very fun and exciting thing if there was like any gore or if it felt visceral at all. But like you said,
well, I will say there is one that was really funny to me, other than the first one, the flashback. The first big one that starts the big battle off, which is the whole moment's really funny. Like, because I was bored for like 40 minutes by this point, but then at the start of this battle, Michael Sheen and then the Cullen family dad, they both jump into the air like superheroes. It looks terrible. It's really funny looking. It's just really silly. Like, why are we doing this big superhero style fight? And I felt like even the way they're all lined up is like Endgame practically. But they fly each other in the air. And then when you don't really see what happens, and when the bad guy lands, like the camera goes down and you see he's holding the head of the family of like the head of the Edwards family, and then so that was funny to me. But then what set it over the edge was Michael Sheen's shit-eating grin. The way he was smiling at the camera
was so funny.
as he was holding this head. I think he's terrible in this movie, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's a bad actor. Most people don't come out looking good in this, but I think he's especially bad in this. And that made me laugh so much. Just on the decapitations while you were bringing them up.
Oh yeah. To be fair though, I do find his character pretty entertaining because he definitely feels like he's chewing the scenery. But
he's
at least it makes it more fun than a lot of the other characters that
he's went back to the buffet table for seconds and thirds with the scenery.
But I mean, it's a good contrast though to everyone that like Bella and Edward. They're just so dull and everything is just kind of talking like this. So
there's two big things from the first chunk of the movie I still want to talk about. One is that for 4 movies, Tim, right, and increasingly so in each movie, right, up until the last one where it was really heavy, Edward, every single time Bella said, please make me a vampire, Edward every time said, no, it can't be, I will not do it, I can never do it, you shall never become a vampire, it can't be. Now that she actually is a vampire, the second he sees her using her powers, he's got this big grin in his face. He's like, oh my god, this is amazing. She's sharing, she can now share all the things with me that I can do. Like, and he does it every time, when she's running fast, when she's jumping up the cliff, when she jumps off the cliff. Like, every single time he's smelling like, oh my god, she's in my cool club now. This is like my dream come true. Except for the entire film franchise, he's been saying, no, I can't do it. I mustn't make you a vampire. And I'm like, this seems like perfect to you now. Like, why were you fighting this the entire time?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure it's probably like an analogy for premarital sex or something. Like now that they're married, it's okay for her to be a vampire. And
you know what, Tim? I actually think you're almost exactly right. That is the sad part of that statement. Because I was thinking, in the last movie when they had sex for the first time, which after Edward awkwardly avoided it for like ages. And the bed just completely like breaks down because he's screwing her that hard. I was thinking, wait a minute, if they've both got like super strength now, like sure they're going to have to get like a steel reinforced bed that's like bolted to the ground and stuff, because like, there's no way like with both of them having that strength. Because that's one of the other things that he likes is she grabs him and like throws him down, and he's like, oh yes, step on me, mummy.
Well, remember, I think it was the first one where. This is probably one of the dumbest things from the whole franchise, but
that's saying something, Tim, at this point.
But do you remember that dumb little thing where they're like, oh, like we can only play, like they can only play baseball when it is there's a storm out, because the hitting the ball is so loud that like people have to think it's thunder or whatever. Like, do you remember that?
I mean, I didn't, but you're ringing a bell now that you're bringing it to my attention.
Well, I mean, I think like if they have to do that with baseball, like they probably have to do something similar with sex, right? Like they can probably only have it like, either when there's a big storm, or if they're next to an IMAX theater playing Oppenheimer or something, like because it's like so loud. I don't know.
I love how you pronounce Oppenheimer. You say Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer. like
you're open a Heimer.
Hey, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm waiting to know how to properly pronounce it when Christopher Nolan tells me.
Oh, they never brought up Oppenheimer in school, Tim. That subject never came up.
No, I never got that far. I think we made up to like the just about the start of the 1900s, and then I graduated. So
very good. So the other thing I want to talk about from early on in the movie, we kind of already brought it up. We brought Bella's reaction to the imprinting thing, right?
Yes.
But we have to talk about how from that point on, like Jacob's still hanging about, and I'm like, so like it would still be creepy if you said, okay, I'm marking her as my future wife, but then you left for 18 years and came back. Like that'd still be weird, don't get me wrong. Sure. But he's hanging about her like her entire childhood. In fact, there's a scene, like half an hour in or whatever, where Bella takes Renesmee to her dad's, and this is where we see Charlie's got a new girlfriend, and they're there for Christmas. It's Christmas, so they do a whole like, oh, it's time to open presents, right? And Jacob's sitting next to her, and she's like a 7-year-old girl now at this point, and he's like sitting next to her on the floor, and he's like, "Hey, Renesmee, I got you a present," and she opens the present, and it's a bracelet, and I'm like, this is creepy as shit. This is like straight up grooming.
It's so goddamn gross, and I don't know. It's insane to me that like, this series was still a thing after this came out. Like, it feels like, like usually you cancel a person, like not a book, but I feel like these books should have been canceled like after.
That's what's so weird about this. Usually when something like this is in a story, it usually makes you look at the author or the like whoever wrote it and say, hey, that guy must have some creepy values if he's feeling that way, right? But like, as far as I know, Stephanie Meyer is, well, I mean, nothing about her strikes me as being okay with a man being predatory with a younger girl. I don't know, it feels weird. Like,
it's so bad, and I mean, it's not like the first thing in the series to do this. Like, there's like, if you look at the series as a whole, there's so many like bad, like, again, it just baffles me because it's supposed to be like, this great romantic thing that like, millions and billions of people like latched onto or whatever. But when you really step back and look at it, it's like and not just this imprinting part, but like, so much about the movie is just like weird and gross. And like, even, early on, just like the, relationship between Bella and Edward is like, he's how old and, picking up a high school chick. And
yeah. The fact he looks the same age is irrelevant. He is much, much, much older. And that's something that you deal with in other vampire fiction. Buffy, the hit television show, even has that going for it, where you have to kind of question that a little bit. And even that part of that's dated a touch. It is kind of wild. And I'm sure I said this in like one of the last couple of reviews that we did of these, but I really have to emphasize as much, especially now that we're at the end, is that Bella does not have an arc over the course of this franchise. That's true. Just wants something in the first movie, which is she falls in love with Edward and she wants to be a vampire and spend her life with him. And she nags and says she wants that. In the second movie, she wants that. In the third movie, she wants it and gets what she wants basically in the fourth movie. And then this movie, it's just a plot about fighting the guys that have been technically been the bad guys the whole franchise. But to be honest, the whole thing's been kind of underwhelming on that front. They've always been kind of an afterthought. So, unsurprisingly, the eventual fight and, well, erasure of that fight, effectively, is not that climactic. It feels kind of like, well, this was just so we had a big fight at the end. You can definitely see how this movie and the last movie could have been fit into one, 2-hour movie without really losing anything of super value.
Yeah. Well, like, all that, I wonder if the thinking was like, people kind of think this is a sort of a chick flick, but if we have this really like badass fight scene, like the guys are gonna want to see it too. Like,
oh yeah, of course. It just like a story is a character learning something and changing because of what they learn. And I've said this before for sure, that Bella, it feels like the lesson she's supposed to learn is that the romance she has when she's a teenager, ultimately she's going to look back on it and say that was a learning experience, but it wasn't like the jump to this is the romance that I'll spend the rest of my life with is a night. Not that it never happens. Childhood sweethearts can stay together. It can happen.
Sure.
But the idea that she immediately, very quickly, just wants that permanent thing. She wants the permanent marriage. And all this series does is give her what she wants eventually after withholding it. Which is kind of what makes it effectively porn. Like, not sex porn, but it's like, that's what porn is. Porn is not a story. Porn is just here it is for the gratification of the fantasy of being a part of it. And that's what this kind of is.
It kind of feels like is like very like uptight Christian porn. Like it's like it seems like this is like kind of like what like a very religious person, like what their kind of ideal fantasy would be. It's like, well, you meet the person that you love when you're 17 in high school, and then you wait until you're married, but of course you get married right away, and then you have sex and you have a kid right away right after that.
It's like cool. Obviously I don't imagine ultra religious people would like everything that's in here, but the whole abstinence like analogy definitely feels like it would fit with a religious like thing. If it wasn't for the fact that the writer clearly likes the idea of a dominant man, like, you know, taking charge and all that, it would feel even more Christian probably. Yeah, that's a good point. It just baffles me. And for the record, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of this in the sense that that's okay. Porn is porn, and if this was just something trashy that people said, hey, I like this because it's a dumb fantasy and I'm into it, that's fine. But they are pretending to be movies. The books were supposed to be actual books, and they're supposed to be art, and art, even bad art, is supposed to try and achieve certain things, and this doesn't. It's just wish fulfillment the entire time. And 50 Shades of Grey is the exact same thing. So, you know, it's the fantasy of falling for the rich man, and then all these things happen, and all the crises that come up to sort of give the movie plot is just random events to give it more things to happen. Even more so in 50 Shades of Grey. At least here they kind of seeded the villains, quote unquote, throughout, but it's all very thin, for sure. So yeah, it's all a bunch of dumb stuff. Yeah. So I mean, what do we talk about now? Do we talk about the fight? Is there anything else in the first half that you feel like you want to talk about?
No, not
actually,
really.
This goes with the wish fulfillment thing. Is that not only is Bella a vampire, she's a super vampire because she's beaten the big strong one at arm wrestling. Like now, it's not just that she's a vampire. Now she's an exceptional vampire.
Yeah.
She's
a total Mary Sue.
I mean, that's not the point I was making. I was more going for the just.
No, it's weird because I think, like, you know, they all have their, like you're saying, like their superpowers or special gifts or whatever, and I think that guy's power is literally supposed to be that he's like incredibly strong, but if he can be beat by this, like, you know, person that doesn't have, you know, they have vampire strength but not super strength, and they like just turned like a few days ago, like it does seem weird. Yeah.
Basically, I'd compare it. So I wasn't going for a Mary Sue thing. I was going more for like Tommy Wiseau in The Room, how he wrote his own character to be the best at everything. Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know, I'm a great guy. I am loving boyfriend. Everyone else is.
You're my favorite customer.
Yeah, everyone else is the problem. Everyone else is making his life worse. You know, it's some. You know, he's supposed to get a promotion at the bank, and he's earned it, but he doesn't get it. You know, he's got the girlfriend, but it's the girlfriend who's cheating on him, so she ruins his life. The best friend ruins his life. Everyone around him ruins his life, but he's perfect, you know. Same with Neil Breen. He's the best at everything in his movies. You know, he can hack any satellite, and the governments don't dare touch him because he's got secret bioweapons buried in every continent on the planet.
You bring up a good point, and now I can't stop thinking about you know, how better this movie would have been if even though he's a good actor, if Michael Sheen, if his character was played by Tommy Wiseau, I think that would have put this movie over the top.
Do you know what? Then it would have been straight up hardcore porn. It'd have been the best porn ever. Yeah.
I'll give the movie the tiniest bit of credit for something. I do think there is something that's kind of intriguing or funny with the idea of like vampire children like being this abomination that like can't stop acting like children but are also like bloodthirsty like vampires. Like, to me, that is a funny, interesting concept, because I feel like so many times like the cliche is, you know, you get a child who is turned into a vampire, but they're very like, you know, they're old and wise beyond their years, you know, like like Kristen Dunst in Interview with a Vampire or something. Even though, I mean, sometimes like, yeah, she acts like a, you know, like fusses or something like a kid, but, you know, there's like this kind of sense that they're like, oh, you know, they're like a tiny adult a lot of the times. But the idea of just like, especially, you know, someone who has kids and who can, yeah, just imagine, you know, my 2-year-old running around with vampire powers. I think that's like a very, you know, an idea that had potential. But I mean, of course, you know, this movie doesn't really do anything with it. I mean, the flashback was kind of funny, but yeah, but I mean, I'll give it a little credit for like that. I was like, maybe one of the few times in the series, I was like, yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea. I don't mind that.
Yeah. But sorry, we have to cut to a shot where Jacob in wolf form's looking lovingly at a 9-year-old girl that he's going to marry. And of course, at the end of the movie, Alice, who gets the visions of the future, shows Edward a vision of the future where him and Bella are visiting Renesmee and Jacob, who are now a couple, and it's like, this is so creepy. And actually, so there's a point they bring up later, right, where part of how they convince them not to start the fight is that Alice, after we get like this, and it's like a 20-minute sequence of all this big fight, like the ground rips open at one point, there's so much CG, people are getting their heads ripped off left and right, so many of them are dying, and at the end it's like, oh no, that was all a vision. Alice was showing this to the bad guys to show this is how it'll turn out. We're all going to die, not just our side, your side's going to die. This is why we shouldn't let this turn into a fight. But then she's like, I found another half human, half vampire in the forest of Brazil or something like that. And he comes out and he's like, yeah, I've been alive for so long, I can feed on both blood and regular, food. I can live on either. And they're asking these questions, and the thing that really stuck out to me was to say, wait a minute, like when did you mature to like adult size? Like when did you stop growing? Because he did stop growing, right? And he's like, I was fully matured after 7 years. And immediately the question that came into my head was, does Jacob make his move when she's technically an adult because she's fully matured physically, or does he wait till she's actually 18? And the question I have this because even if she's fully grown physically in 7 years, that's still a 7-year-old,
I mean, I think we both know the answer to that question.
It's absolutely, absolutely. He hits it as quickly as he can. I know that's the answer, Tim, because he's a little pervert. He's a little pedophile. I'm just going to say it.
And you know what's so funny about this too is I kept expecting him to try to justify it and be like I kept expecting him to say something like, oh, well, like, it's not a sexual thing. I just I feel like a father figure to her, or like I'm going to be like her guardian, her protector. But like, no, it totally is a sexual thing. Like they don't even try to hide it or anything. Like he's literally like, so should I call you dad? It's like gross. Like, I would kill him.
Yeah, he says that to Edward. Yeah, he says to Edward, should I start calling you dad? And yeah, well, Edward should be ripping his head off the second he said that. She's still a little kid. Like, what the hell?
Like, I don't know. I wish they really would have played up this angle more. Like, they constantly should be like bickering and fighting. Like,
they should be livid at him. And honestly, they almost broach an interesting idea, because it felt like Bella for a split second when she was angry and yelling at him was trying to make the point that how dare you sort of like assume that she has no choice about who she's with when she comes of age. So, this idea that she is bound to you and like you're her only option now when she grows up. Like, there's almost something interesting about Bella fighting for her daughter's right to know she can fall in love with whoever she wants when she grows up. But the movie never really, it barely mentions it at all, never mind explores it. Especially coming from Bella, it's actually quite interesting from her, given that she just kind of settled on the first guy she fell for.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Anyway, what you said, Tom, sorry.
No, I mean, I agree with that. And I don't know. Yeah, like, if you just stand back for, like, sometimes, like, there's movies with, like, themes or whatever that maybe might not be so obvious until you, like, really sit down and think hard about it. But it's like this, like, just stand back for 1 second and, like, think what the movie is saying. Like, it's saying, like, no, it's okay for this grown man to, like, be into this young girl and, like, get her gifts and stuff, and like, and he's not a bad guy, he can't help it. Like, it's part of his nature. Like, the things it's saying is just so gross. And then I don't know, it wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't like, for years that this book was touted as being like one of the best romance things like out there.
And I don't know how else you could read it. Like that, what you specifically just said there, that he says things along the lines of, I can't help it, it's just natural and part of, like, who I am. Like, I can just imagine a man saying, oh no, it's like, I have these urges, I'm a man, and like, you can imagine that being the argument. I don't know how you take this as an analogy for anything other than that. Like, it's baffling. Like, everything else, like the idea of like them not liking the fact that there's a mixed species kid who's half vampire, half human. Oh, you could take that as an analogy for a mixed race child, and like the idea that the two quote unquote groups of people will go to war, and it'll just get the hatred will get everyone killed. You could say that's an analogy for that to some extent. You could say lots of things, right? I'm not saying the movie's doing a lot with it, but you could at least give it that. But this, like, I don't know how to read this Jacob imprinting shit other than just it's grooming, and he's saying he has no control over it to absolve him of blame. And frankly, like, and the sad part is that when Bella goes and so Alice leaves a clue for her, which leads her to go to this guy who's got a package for Alice. So Bella goes and picks it up, and it turns out to be passports for Renesmee and Jacob, so that they can go and be go into hiding together somewhere else. And I'm like, wait a minute, Alice's plan here, seemingly at this point in the movie, is that to protect Renesmee from the vampire community, is that she'll go and live with the man who is grooming her, and they'll be alone together, and then there'll be a couple later on when she's old enough. And for some reason, at this point, the narration, which by the way, Bella casually drops in and out narrating this movie, especially in the middle, because there's so much exposition to give, she has to narrate, otherwise we wouldn't know what the hell was going on. This is basically the point where Bella goes, in her narration, at this point I could see what Alice's plan was, and maybe it does have to be that way. And I'm like, no, under no circumstance are you this quickly going, yeah, you know what, she should be alone with Jacob for years. No.
Disgusting.
It's this entire plot line is one of the most blatantly just tone deaf and immaturely written things I think I've seen in a major I expect this shit from something that not that The Room has this specifically, but something of that caliber, something that has been a low budget passion project for a nutcase. Those are the movies I expect to have insane basically offensive plots like this. Instead though, this is in a major movie released by, was it Lionsgate or something, whoever made this?
Lionsgate, we expect better from you.
They also did Expendables, actually. I don't know if it was Lionsgate. I think I might be making that up. Who did this?
Was it Paramount?
No, it doesn't. No, it wasn't Paramount.
A24.
Definitely wasn't A24. You take that back. Project got Summit Entertainment. Okay, so it was a smaller one. Summit Entertainment. Distributor. Oh, Lionsgate distributed it, so I wasn't crazy. I did see a Lionsgate logo. Okay. Right. So they had a hand in it.
Yeah. I don't know. One thing I do want to go back to is you're talking about the, that other half human, half vampire person they bring up. I thought it was really funny when, they ask him so do you drink blood or do you eat human food? And he says, well, I can survive on both. So my first reaction was we should probably go with food then.
Yeah, it seems like an easier thing to get.
Yeah.
Doesn't cause as much harm to someone. Yeah.
I don't know why that just really cracked me up. Yeah, it's well, I can be evil and kill people, or just savagely rip animals apart and drink their blood, or I could just go to McDonald's and get a burger.
To be fair, clearly these him and this woman that he's with look like they're in a tribe that live in a jungle or something somewhere. They were going for kind of that vibe. So then again, McDonald's is everywhere these days, so maybe there's a McDonald's next to the tents.
Very true. Yeah.
Maybe McDonald's itself is a tent. Just a big tent with the M on it. Yeah.
What could possibly be an interesting take, though, if you wanted to keep this Jacob storyline in, every movie kind of has to have an antagonist in it, and some type of fight and stuff, and this one ends up being kind of dumb and pointless. But what if you make Jacob the ultimate villain of the movie, he imprints, and then he's still doing his oh yeah, I'm gonna me and your daughter in 7 years when she's all grown up. What if you make that them being no, screw you, you can't have our daughter. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but you can't help it. And then like there becomes like a big showdown between like the wolves and the vampires. And I don't know. I think
making Jacob the villain of this movie based on what he's doing to the daughter does actually make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But instead, during the big battle, before it turns out to be a vision,
it's like you might as well just call it a dream sequence. Like it's
Renesmee is riding on Jacob's back when he's in wolf form, which obviously looked terrible. And I really can't emphasize enough like how many shots in this movie, even like when we get the ending, which is Bella and Edward sitting in the flower field that they've been in the first movie, or maybe it was I don't know, whatever movie it was, but it was, I think it was where he proposed. But they're having a heart to heart, and she has another superpower, which is to show him like memories, and she has a line where she says, "Now you know that no one's ever loved anyone as much as I love you," and I'm like, F you. The hubris, the ego on you to think that no one has ever felt as much as you do is just sheer sloppy, shitty, melodramatic writing. And this entire scene looked terrible because for some reason this was all green screened as well. Like this movie looks terrible constantly. It is almost like remarkable how bad it looks. And what's so funny is that other than the montage where they're going around the world getting different people, which is like a section in the middle, like so much of it takes place at the Cullens' house, Bella's dad's house, and then like the field and the forest. Like that is the locations that we spend in this movie.
Yeah.
One of the worst scenes in the movie is there's a campfire scene before like the night before the battle where they're all the vampires they've recruited are all telling stories about their best kills and stuff, and like there's the pair who are like super Transylvania sounding, and there's Rami Malek and the one he's with, and there's like Lee Pace is there because he's a vampire. There's another guy who's kind of like got a southern accent, who's got blonde hair. Like there's a whole, and they're just like telling these stories, and it's just all painful. This is where I was really bored, was this kind of stuff, because it was like we're spending time with all these characters. You've introduced so many of them, and it's just a list of people to put into the fight. There's no story really being told with any of them. So
I don't know, not at all. And then like the weird thing is like it feels like it's so many people, but then when it comes time to fight, it also feels like really small, because it feels like it should be this giant epic like army versus army, but then it's like when you're in that big snow field and you can kind of like see everyone, it feels like, oh, that's only like what, 15 people each maybe. Like
yeah, can I also point out, like, this is a lot of noise, there's a lot of fighting. Like, what if there was a guy walking his dog in the forest, like, just over, like, and just casually walked out in the middle of this big battle and saw people flying through the air at each other and just backed away slowly into the tree line, like Homer Simpson, just being like, well, there's some sort of war happening in the field. Maybe I'll call that in. I don't know. It feels like, I know they're in kind of in the middle of nowhere here, but it just kind of feels like this is such a big thing that's going down. The idea that a human could like be in a plane and look down, or could be nearby randomly on a hike or something. Just like you could be caught doing this, and the bad guys are like so much like, oh, we have to keep our life as vampires a secret kind of thing. Like that's their whole thing. So
just to throw something positive out there, it's so refreshing, if you think about stuff that's actually good, thinking about what we do in the shadows, like the TV show specifically, like so many ideas that are in here that they just do like so much better, just like like the idea of like vampiric councils, and what you do if someone finds out if you're a vampire, and
and Joe, it's really weird, that is a sitcom on FX, has better visual effects than this movie.
Oh, I mean, it looks so much better than this. That's insane.
It's really wild. I mean, I don't know if I've got much left to say, Tim. I think I'm scraping the barrel now. Is there anything we've not talked about that you'd like to get off your chest?
I think I mentioned it in the other reviews, but I hate the designs of the werewolves. I think obviously the CG is really bad, but I do hate whenever a werewolf is just depicted as being just like a really big wolf. Like that's not interesting to me. It's just like you just took a thing that exists in real life and made it bigger.
Yeah, you don't want just a big wolf. You don't want a wolf man. You want something that's in between the two. You want a perfect 50-50 hybrid of man and wolf.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that that didn't do much for me. It is weird how, like, I don't know, the vampiric Illuminati or whatever, how they are like, so I mean, I don't know if this is like a metaphor or analogy for anything, but like it is weird how like they're so against this thing, even though like they don't really know anything about it. They're like, oh, like you're half, oh well, that's a weird thing. So what's that like? Like they've, in their however many years of being vampires, I've never come across that.
Oh yeah, that was another bit overacting from Sheen, actually, is when he's seeing, because basically when he first shows up and they have this sort of standoff, and Edward goes up and lets Michael Sheen like sort of like read his mind to see what's been happening. When he touches him and he's like, you don't see the what he's seeing, you just see his face. He does like almost like an orgasm face where he's like, like he's really interested in hearing about how this daughter came to be. I don't know. It's just,
do you think he was like showing them like when they had sex, like?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. He's like, Edward, you naughty boy, I see why you like that human. Yes. Didn't
he, like, he does, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he does say something kind of weird, like, oh, Bella, like, you know, you're living up to your name, you know, being as beautiful as ever, like something like that. Like, I don't know.
She's the Bella of the ball.
So I will say, I don't, like, what do you think about the fight scene? Because I feel like it should be more fun than it was. Like, at first, at the beginning, I was like, okay, like, this is gonna get crazy, and it might be kind of cool to see, like, you know, people getting their heads ripped off, like a whole bunch. But I don't know, I guess maybe because of the lack of gore or whatever, it just feels like, yeah, very lifeless and stuff.
Yeah, I think part of it as well is just because everything looks so badly green screened, everything feels very compartmentalized. There you go. Where it just kind of feels like we're just going to different pockets to see fights playing out, but it's such a dull location. It's the same problem I have. Obviously, it overall looks better because it's a Marvel movie, although, to be honest, their effects have not been great these last few years either. But, you know, the airport fight in Civil War, I actually, like, one of my big complaints of that movie is that they picked this dull, grey, just flat surface to have this fight, and it's just boring. And same thing here, like, there's no geography to speak of where you can see, oh, like, because of these like landmarks in the location, you can tell like how far away they are from each other. Let's say Bella gets in trouble and like Edward has to go to help her, or vice versa. You understand how far away they are from each other, so you understand the tension and like how long it will take to get there. You know, things like that. Geography is so important in a fight scene, and action in general. And there's no geography here really, because once they start fighting, it's just a big plain white square of land, and they're all just fighting. You know, so it, and I think the opposite of that though, and when it does work, is something like Braveheart, where you literally have so many extras that it feels like a sea of people, and you're in the mix, and it works better in that context. But I think, you know, it just like, so pretty shit. There's a couple of funny moments where they do rip off a head or something, but for the most part, just kind of really bad looking.
I was semi looking forward to it because that's like one thing I had heard about the movies before is like, I think I heard people say like, oh yeah, like the last one gets really violent and the people are just like tearing each other's heads off and stuff, which, you know, sounds good in theory, but then when you watch it, apparently really live up to that.
That apparently not having blood, even though you're doing decapitations, is enough to get a PG-13. Like the blood apparently makes a difference.
Well, I mean, Yeah, I mean that doesn't surprise me, like, because I mean it looks bad, but it is still incredibly violent. Like it is still people ripping off each other's heads.
No, I mean no, you misunderstand. I'm saying that beheading like this, I would expect an R rating, and simply by removing the blood, it's instantly a PG-13. I'm saying it's went down.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I thought you meant like it was going from PG to PG-13, but no. Yeah, I mean that makes sense too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all PG-13, I think, but it stuck out to me because I was like, well, I guess just not having blood instantly makes this more kiddie friendly by the standards of the MPA. Especially, it's like oh no, the Jacob plotline, that's fine for a 13-year-old, but
yes,
but blood, blood.
Oof, no, I can't have that.
Can't have any blood.
At least give them some like weird like sparkle liquid, inside their bodies or something like. It can't be dry. Dry decapitation is never good.
Imagine if glitter came out when they got their heads ripped off, or like glittery gel, like gel pen stuff, like just and that's all. Yeah, it's all shiny.
That would be fun. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
I'd be into it. It's kind of like, I don't know if you
especially if they're like screaming as it's like pouring down their face.
I don't know if you ever saw Kingsman. Now, it wasn't the people's blood, but like the explosives they had like in their necks or around their heads or whatever it was blew up into like a sort of colourful rainbow of dust. So you had all these decapitations at the end where all these people's heads were just bursting into like colours. And it was almost like a really inventive way again to like not get the R rating, because it's like, okay, heads are exploding technically, but it looks so cartoony because of all the colours that.
My frame of reference was which I forget, you might have seen it, but I think it was the Japanese movie Why Don't You Play in Hell, where there's a scene where there's like this big Yakuza fight, and I think like someone just took like a whole bunch of drugs or whatever, so like they're kind of hallucinating, so like they're watching the fight, and as like they're like slicing people with swords and stuff, like instead of blood, like rainbows are coming out.
I have seen it. It's been a while though, so I don't really remember it very well, but that is sounding kind of familiar now you're saying it.
Which was a funny scene, funny idea, and visually it looked cool. But yeah, I mean, this movie doesn't do anything interesting like that.
Nope. It's almost like, because you can kind of see how if this was all one movie, that okay, the honeymoon leading to the baby, leading to the vampire turn, maybe. I don't know if that'd be the end of Act 1 or the end of Act 2. Probably Act 2, because it's when we're at the most dangerous. Like, this does almost feel like a third act that was stretched out to be a whole movie. And obviously they padded it out as best they could. And yeah, the benefits of that are giving us more time to just see Bella, like, learn to use her powers and shit. But, I mean, admittedly, though, how much more rushed would all these vampires they assemble feel if this was only the last third of the previous movie? It would probably feel like super rushed. So I don't know, but at the same time it feels like almost nothing happens, because it's like Bella's dealing with having powers, assembling the vampire army, fight, a race fight. Oh, we're all friends now, except that one blonde-haired vampire on the villain side who's really upset that they're not still fighting. All on him, but they're all like, yeah, let's just go home.
It's like, what? We're not gonna fight? It's like, why? We just literally saw that we'll all die. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah, it does feel so anticlimactic. It's just like, oh wow. All right. Well, I guess we won't do that. So, see ya. Bye.
Yeah. Oh well. Let's do it, Tim. Let's rate Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. What are you giving it?
I mean, it's definitely not a good movie. I can't remember what I gave the other ones. I think they're all pretty low. If I have to compare it to the other ones, I guess like one thing I will say is like, I do agree the middle was boring, but I probably found this one a little more entertaining than probably most of them, just because there were a few moments here and there that were so dumb or goofy that they were funny, like the ones you pointed out, and then like by the way,
I can tell you your ratings for the other ones if you want.
Oh sure.
The last one you gave a 2, Eclipse, you gave a 2.
Okay.
I need to find the other ones. Where are they? I'll control F. Let's just make it easy. I don't know if they'll all be in here, but at least the first one you gave the second one you gave a 2. And the first one you gave a 4. Oh, you were being very generous with that first one.
I think I mean, if you want to go back and listen to that episode, I believe the first one I was more operating under the assumption that while I didn't particularly like the movies, they're not really for us, which I don't know. I kind of stand by, but then after having to watch 5 of them, especially like they get like worse and worse and worse, it gets harder to justify that. It's easy to watch one movie and be like, well, it's not for me. I mean, whatever, if people like it, but then to have to sit through 5 of them, especially as they get more ridiculous and whatever, it's hard to justify that. But yeah, so mostly 2s across the board, but I'll give this one a slight bump. I guess I'll give 2.5. I do think there was some more interesting stuff and some more goofy, funny stuff that at least made it a bit more interesting than the other ones, although my memory of the other ones isn't great.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still not great. And I do feel like this was one of the worst looking of the ones, but I don't know how the hell that happened.
Yeah, they've been looking bad for a while. I think this was the worst looking one. I think I want to say the last one was actually maybe a little bit funnier for longer, just because of the whole honeymoon where he was avoiding having sex. I remember that being funny.
Sure.
I remember Eclipse having some funny stuff with the tent and all that. So, but I don't remember if they were more consistent or not. Truth is, they're all probably quite spotty. So I'm just going to play it safe and just give this a 2. I'm tempted to even go a bit lower because of how bad this one looks, but I mean, I think 2 covers it pretty sufficiently.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 out of 10 for an average between us of 2.25 out of 10. Very good.
Wowza.
That's your Twilight. And Tim, we are done. It's finished.
Yay.
There is no more Twilight unless they reboot it or something, in which case we'll have to probably suffer it. But for now, we are finished.
Let's get on to an actual good 5-part vampire series.
Oh god. Now, I've not decided what order these are going out in yet. So I could put what you're referencing, because we've already recorded an episode for a movie that I could put directly after this, based on what you just said.
It works, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
if people want to see the real love story between
God, no.
a mortal woman who, well, I don't want to give anything away, but
yeah, I'll just say this, folks, it's not good, but still better than Twilight. Still a better love story than Twilight, to use the old meme. All right, well, there you go. As Octoberthon, we're doing as many episodes as possible. I don't know how many it's going to be overall. It's actually very hard to schedule when to put the first few out, because I don't know what pacing should be, because I don't know how many we're going to have all in. But I reckon you're probably getting about 3 a week, give or take. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully you're enjoying Octoberthon. There was a couple of quirky picks recently, but I'm going to force Tim to do some serious ones soon, so that we actually have some big movies.
I mean, I just want to say, to the if these Twilight reviews have taught us anything, it's that, yeah, I mean, we'll pretty much review anything if you throw enough money. So
that's true. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know what else is there, like the
well,
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, like
no, it has to be a horror. It still has to be a horror movie. Come on, Tim.
Okay.
Come on now. Let's not talk nonsense. So that is that. So yeah, obviously, I mean, the bonuses on Patreon had been paused while Tim was on paternity leave, but the bonus episodes, and there might be more than one for this month, are back, and even more streams, which is the $5 tier and up bonus show where we just talk about the different horror movies we've been watching throughout the month. Plus, Tim has been doing a quiz, which maybe he'll still do when we come back. If not, I do have an idea for a segment to replace it if need be, or maybe even complement it. Either way, but Even More Screams will be back in November. So the bonus stuff will be back, and also there's bonuses for the other stuff, like the collector's cut. So if all that sounds interesting, and but more importantly, if you want to support the content and keep the show coming, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us over there. But that is the show, so thank you very much for joining us. It's finally over. Twilight is complete, so keep watching proper, scary movies, and we will see you next time.